Well, I want to bring this up because you just brought up that they cut you because of the money. They cut you because of the money. And then Pete brought the same thing up because I saw it again. And I get this question asked all the time. What did they do over there? What are they doing? You know, and people constantly cite ratings and things like that. Most of it is wrong. It's erroneous. And I saw it again today. Bruce Allen wrote a piece on BostonSportsMedia.com, what next for WEEI and what would you do? And there's a bunch of stuff in there. And people, I think what happens in the media, if somebody writes one thing now, it suddenly becomes fact. And because you've got the internet, you've got social media, if anybody writes it, there's no checking or rechecking it. It just goes out there, and it's forever out there. So when I get the question asked to me all the time, what was WEEI doing? And you were on yesterday with Dale and Holly, and the two of them have always been terrific together. I really liked that show. It was a great lead-in for us, as Pete knows. Their show, it was different than our show.
You didn't like the sled dog leading before, years earlier? See, I did a rod talk before we used to come on.
No, not really. It was, but that was a really good show leading into our show. Here's the erroneous part about it. Dale never should have been let go. And to me, that was the beginning of really the downfall of WEEI. You were breaking up what was going on. And instead of understanding that WEEI was playing on a AM radio station in a marketplace where anybody that was over the age of 40 or under the age of 40 didn't listen to AM radio. Right. This was a radio station that they went to because it had a format that they wanted to listen to, but they were in foreign territory. They were on AM radio. Yeah. And once the Sports Hub came on the air with CBS and got a 2-year lead being on FM, a world of difference. Toucher and Rich brought a really young audience, and it changed the game dramatically. But the reason that they let Dale Arnold go and all of the other people, including Pete and including me, was all money. Mm-hmm. Their business model, they wanted to do it a lot cheaper. But I keep on seeing this, that, you know, people are saying, well, why was Dale the first one to go? And that was a mistake. I'm telling you right now, it was stupid. It was a dumb, idiotic thing to do. And it started the real domino effect because it was a good show. Well, Dale was let go because they didn't want to pay Dale. They wanted to get somebody else that they could pay at a fraction of what they were paying Dale Arnold. But the one thing that's wrong out there is everybody's writing, well, Dale and Holly were number one in the ratings. They weren't. That was not the case. The reason that he was the first one to go is they had lower ratings with Dale and Holly than Dennis and Callahan had in the morning or we had in the afternoon. Because we were fearful, you know, we were the next to go, but our ratings were higher. And people keep on writing that, and I think there was, out there in the internet world, there's a strong following of guys that really love Dale and Holly. I can understand why. I felt the same way about their show. It was a good show. That they, for some reason, kept on writing that it was getting great ratings. That was the reason they did it. You don't take the number one show. If they were beating Gresh and Zoe so much, you don't suddenly say, we're just going to get rid of that show. We're going to take Dale Arnold and we're going to fire him. We're going to
did that to you?
Some other young kid.
You were number one when you got.
But I was number one in the spring. By the time they fired me, I was number 3. By the way, in the last month, they were number 12 in the same shift.
Ooh.
Yeah, number 12.
That's low.
3.7. I've never seen ratings at EI.
In the same shift, they dropped to number 12. Yeah. But I was cut because of money. They didn't want to pay me. If I'm going to be number 3, they're sitting there figuring we can get somebody a lot younger, pay them a lot less money. They cut people keep on saying to me, well, why did you end up getting C and D list co-host on the program? We didn't have the money. They suddenly changed the arrangement on how much money we were going to pay guys, and there were certain guys that said, screw it, we're not going to do it. If you're not going to pay us, we're not going to do it. We're going to go over to this new thing called the Sports Hub and see what we can do. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But, getting back to the original point, that was the start, I think, of the downfall. Dale Arnold never should have been let go.
And how about
never should have been let go.
And what happened right after they did? Bruins.
The Bruins went bananas.
Yeah, and he was the best guy. He was the best guy on the station to talk Bruins.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
And there were times when the Bruins were struggling where he was like, everybody's meat puppet. He got slapped around for being like a Bruins apologist or whatever, fair or unfair. And
he had another job. He was working at Nesson, so you're going to be protective.
We got in several battles about it. I understand it. We got in several battles about it, and it got heated at times, but it was.
Sure.
He's trying to protect his own ass. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh my God, Greg Dickerson has said flat out, listen, when he was working for the Celtics.
Said it yesterday, there.
Yeah, I like my car. I like my I like my house. There's nothing wrong with that. You just admit it. I'm on the payroll. I don't think anyone has a problem.
You said the story yesterday. Danny Ainge told him, said, Johnny Most became a legend by being a Celtic homer. Just think about that, or something to that.
They all are. They have to be. I mean, it's in the best interest of themselves to do that.
Sure, absolutely.
But
the Hub embraced hockey, and perception, right or wrong, is that Dale was the only guy on that station that would talk about hockey, and the Hub came and they just said there's a whole bunch of people out here that are dying to talk hockey, and we're going to welcome them all. And
that was just bad. That was bad
and the
timing.
timing was insane.
Awful, letting Dale go at that time. But they never would have unloaded him if they were number one at the time. Now, they were number one for years, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But they weren't at that time. And they were the first of the three shows to actually take the biggest drop and the biggest rise on the other station. But the same thing happened to me when we dropped down to third. They're looking at it saying, well, why are we going to pay him that type of money? We can go out and we'll go to Seattle. Let's go to Seattle. We'll find somebody in Seattle and bring him in here for a lot less money, and we can be number three and pay a lot less money to be number three. And as I said, they're number 12 now.
How about this? Try him out? Should we try him out with the co-host? He's going to be on? No, just bring him in. Let's just let him hit each other and let it go running. That worked.
But they never should have broken up Dale and Holly.
No. Years ago, Felger did an interview with one of the guys at Barstool in the paper edition of Barstool, which is how people forget we got our start. And it was a big coup for my buddy who was writing for us, and you got this media star. And Felger had a great point. He goes, people listen to sports radio the way they listen to music. You hear this, oh, I like this interview, I want to hear this, oh, this not so much. You know what I mean? There's certain things on, say, Dennis and Callahan that are appointment radio for me. Like when they have Brad Faxon on during a golf thing. I love hearing that. They're really good interviews. And I think sometimes people lose track of that. Like, oh, no, I just listen to this one show. I don't think anybody does that. If there's a compelling show on the other channel, you're going to bounce back and forth. And by the way, none of this can be taken as like we're slamming anybody, right?
No, not at all.
Because that's how these things work. Somebody talk about another show, and it's, I hear you slamming us on this on Ordway show. Well, no, we're all just talking about our preferences.
No, I think, and I said this on Monday, we're going to be unfiltered. We're going to talk about these other things. And these are things that when you're working for a place, certainly when you're working for where I was working, they wouldn't let you talk about this stuff. So everybody was talking about it outside of the studio. People were talking about it all the time, but you couldn't talk about it on the air. And I think that was a huge mistake. Mm-hmm. I think that we should have. And the Sports Hub did a smart thing. When they came on the air, they talked about us all the time. Mm-hmm. And it was a smart thing. I think everybody talks about both stations. They talk about it. And the other thing that happens, too, and you're seeing it right now, is that, Felger and Maz are getting terrific ratings, the way that we got terrific ratings in the old days with the Big Show. It wasn't that long ago that we were getting terrific ratings. And as I said, they kept us on AM for a couple of years while they were on FM, which didn't help. But we got to a point where people we got worn out a little bit. People tired of us. And now I'm hearing people say the same thing about Felger and Maz that they were saying about us, because you always want something that's fresh and new. We always go through that syndrome. You always want to find something which is giving you a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
You're fresh and you are new, my friend.
And I'm, available for anybody. And as I pointed this out to Felger and Maz one time, and I think I moved the discomfort needle when I brought it up, but I said, have you noticed you started having me on and Ordway's gone? You know what I mean? Cause and effect. I think I'm pretty much the guy that everyone just said, I'm not going to listen to him for 20 hours a week because there's 10 minutes of Thornton on Fridays. No, obviously.
And the other thing that used to aggravate, it still aggravates me, is when you still, and I'm not just saying it could be for Sports Hub, it could be for EI, anything. When people say, you guys, no matter who they say, had no competition, you're full of shit. Absolute bullshit. When you say that, people for some reason don't understand about all the music stations that are out there being competition. Just because there wasn't at the time before Sports Hub a successful sports radio station, are you kidding me? With all the classical rock stations out there, with Kiss 108, with 94.5, with WBZ News, I mean there's hefty competition.
Yeah, we had Opie and Anthony for a while in Afternoon Drive, and they were a huge ratings builder. Mm-hmm. And then we had Toucher and Rich. And they were building a huge audience, and that was the reason that Mark Cannon over there at Sports Hub ended up moving them as the morning show for their new sports show. It was a smart move.
And Dakota had a radio show too. At the same
that wasn't. We didn't look at that necessarily. We didn't look at that in the same way.
At 1510, how many times Dakota almost got thrown out of the window into the bay? Can't tell you how many times. Not on my show, but other people's shows.
Didn't Mikey Adams get fired like in the middle of a show? He was doing morning drive at 1510. Yeah. And I think he got fired right in the middle of a show, something like that.
Well, someone in the business once told me, once people move to FM, they don't want to go back to AM ever. It becomes like permanent. You know what I mean? They pull up the ladder.
But you know how many years Glenn was ahead of the curve with this? You know how many times he tried to talk to corporate about going to FM?
Sure.
Try.
The old Big Show format, and people, this is another mistake they make, was never on FM. The old format of the old Big Show never got an opportunity. They broke it up, and it became a two-man show with myself and Michael Holly. Yep. And I'll say up front, and I say it privately to anybody, and Pete knows this, I loved working with Michael Holly. Terrific guy. He was fun to work with. And so I enjoyed my time working with Michael Holly. But the Big Show was different, but we never had an opportunity to go to FM. And the biggest mistake that station made is staying on AM for 2 years. I can tell you the CBS executives thought they were crazy that they didn't switch over immediately when CBS came into the market, did it, because the fan changed over to FM. IP in Philadelphia did it. All the other stations that were on AM, they made that flip right away. Like and it was a huge mistake.
Just like they should have stopped Hitler in Poland. You know?
Well, I don't know if that's a good analogy.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to compare 98.5 to
Munich. They should have stopped them.
Yeah, but it took too long. Well, personally, I think we're seeing the same thing happen now, the first few steps towards people going to apps, live streaming on their phones, and I think it may very well signal the death of terrestrial radio. Yeah, I mean, already the satellite, I happen to not have satellite, but I could see where the same thing would happen, that same progression forward, the way high-def TV got rid of analog TV or whatever. I certainly hope
High definition is already out. It's Ultra HD now. It's 4 times what you have in regular high. That's how quickly stuff is changing. Yeah. But you're right. You're already seeing it right now with music stations, people going to Pandora and Spotify. And the same thing's going to happen with the talk. You're going to see everything go over now to mobile radio, and you're going to have a dashboard in the car. And I don't want to bore everybody with this talk. It's one reason we're doing this is because we think it's the future, and we think the future is right around the corner. It's not that far down the road. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw that earlier today, and people keep on saying that. But that was if you're looking for an event that really was the start of, what happened to EEI, I really believe it was letting Dale Arnold go, and I thought that was a huge
Dale
mistake.
Arnold was the King Ferdinand of this. When they whacked him in Austria-Hungary, it started World War I.
You know what? I was just going to say that. I'm glad you brought it up before I did.
Somehow that's less offensive than we should have stopped Hitler.
You can get us on TuneIn talking about the various vehicles and how you get a hold of us. You can get us on TuneIn. You can get us on Big Show Unfiltered.com. That's our website. SportsTalkBoston.com is also our website. By the way, when you're listening to us on TuneIn, you'll see a little heart up at the top. Do me a favor and just hit the hat and just give it a little click that you like us. And we're happy to report that starting next Monday, we will add satellite to our a new platform. We'll be on Sirius and XM. We'll be on channel 108 on Sirius, which if you got your directory, we are in between Oprah network and the Out Q Gay Lesbian Radio Network.
That's true.
So, yeah.
If we're next to does she broadcast next door?
No, she's got much better facilities.
Okay.
She's in Chicago. She's got
Just
this
on the
phenomenal,
dial. Okay.
just on the dial.
Glenn, can I plug something? I'm going to be on that next week.
I'm sure you are. And then